is being recorded. At this time, for opening remarks and introductions, I would like to turn the conference over to Mr. Dave Schaller. Please go ahead, sir.
Thanks, Jessica. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the UFC 157 media call. UFC 157, Rousey versus Carmouche, takes place Saturday, February 23rd, live on pay-per-view from the Honda Center in Anaheim. Today, we are joined on the call by the stars of the card, Ronda Rousey, the women's bantamweight champion, Liz Carmouche, Dan Henderson, and Lyoto Machida, who today will be translated by Derek Lee. Dana White is not on the call today, folks. He is actually in Ireland accepting an award. So we will go ahead and start with the first question. Jessica, would you go ahead and cue?
Thank you. If you would like to ask a question, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad. If you are using a speakerphone, please make sure your mute function is turned off to allow your signal to reach our equipment. We'll pause for just a moment while we assemble the queue. We'll take our first question from Ron Kruk of Access TV.
Morning, everyone. Thanks for the time. Question for Ronda. Ronda, there's been so much publicity in this media blitz coming into this first women's UFC fight. Can you talk a little bit about and compare it to what you experienced as you were preparing and going into the Olympics?
Well, there's definitely a lot more attention on this than in the Olympics. You know, there's 500-something U.S. Olympians from the U.S., and there's only really a few people on this fight card that are really spotlighted. And it's definitely a lot, but it's easier and harder at the same time because there's so much less focus on you in the Olympics that it's a lot harder work because you have to do a lot more things on your own. And now I have pretty much a whole team centered just around me, whereas for the Olympics, you were one person on a team vying for the attention of one coach.
And a quick follow-up for Liz. Liz, how has the media blitz experience been for you so far?
So far, it's been rewarding. I agree with Ronda. It's definitely a change from past fights. But getting to meet new people and see new faces has been great through the whole thing.
And then just a final question, if I may, for Dan Henderson. Dan, you've been in this business for a long time. You've seen pretty much everything that this sport has had to offer, and now you're a part of this card where women are making their octagon debut. Can you talk about just your thoughts going into this card and the women coming into the UFC?
I think it's great. I've got no problem, especially only fighting 3 rounds. It's kind of nice to have that. And I'm definitely a fan, and I'll be watching after my fight's over.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
And we'll go next to Dan Algria with the Press Junkie.
Yes, hi, good morning. Ronda, I have a question for you. Can you speak a little bit about the influence that your mom's success in judo had on you?
I think what really helped the most was just having a world champion walking around the house made everything seem entirely attainable. It didn't seem like the idea of becoming the best in the world in something was a 1 in 10 billion shot. It was something that was entirely possible because walking through the house, I had my mom who was the best in the world in judo at one point. So it definitely gave me confidence from the very beginning that I think that most little kids wouldn't have naturally had.
Great. And what kind of pressure do you have going into this fight on Saturday, next Saturday, knowing that, there's no other future UFC fight for women set up? How do you feel about that, kind of knowing that, your success in this fight kind of hinges on the success of the women's division?
You know what? The pressure that I put on myself, just for my own pride, really outweighs any kind of pressure I could put on myself for anybody else's motives or anything else. So, though it does seem like a very important fight and that a lot weighs on it, I really don't care so much. I don't like anybody that much. So I care more about winning just for myself than I care about winning for everybody else.
Right.
It doesn't really affect me that much.
Okay, and one last question for Dan Henderson. This morning we got the news that the IOC has decided to drop wrestling from the Olympics. What are your thoughts on that, being a former Olympian?
It's kind of sad that happens to, the sport that's been there the longest in the Olympics. And but I think I've been hearing that being threatened and a possibility for at least 20 years now. So, hopefully, it doesn't stay that way, but, it's just unfortunate.
Okay, thank you.
Once again, if you would like to ask a question, or if you have a follow-up question, please press star 1. We'll take our next question from James Bryden of Sportsnet Canada.
Oh, hi. My question is for Dan. I wanted to ask the same question I was just asked, but just to follow up, you said that it's for 20 years, like wrestling has sort of been on the bubble, maybe. What is the reason for that, in your opinion?
I guess it's not as exciting as other sports and doesn't get as much TV coverage. It is what it is. It's definitely not as exciting as MMA, but I enjoyed it, and I think it's a tough sport, and it's just sad to see it go.
Do you think this decision, I know it's not for another until 2020, but do you think it may have an impact on people coming into mixed martial arts? They may do less wrestling because of something like this?
It's hard to say. I mean, in our country, we're the only country that does, the folk style wrestling, and that'll still be there, especially in high schools and colleges. But it's hard to say what's going to happen with the wrestling community. I still think a lot of kids are going to do it based on just trying to get better or learn wrestling for MMA.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
We'll go next to Steve Morocco of MMA Junkie.
I pretty much had a follow-up on the same topic for Rhonda, especially being a former Olympian. What do you think the reason is behind cutting the sport of wrestling?
I was really surprised when I heard that this morning. I thought it was like a hoax when I heard it, to be honest. And the only real reason I could think of is maybe just a few countries are overly dominant. Usually they start thinking about taking sports out if there aren't enough countries competing or if one country is winning too much. I think that's kind of why they took softball out. But I think it's just a shame. This is the oldest sport in all of the Olympics. It was like in the original Olympics, they had wrestling in there. And the idea that they're replacing it with golf, I think if you don't break a sweat, it's not a sport, it's a skill. So it's very skillful to be good at golf, but I think that wrestling is one of the most, what's it called? What am I looking for? Not the most basics, but it's one of the most, I don't know. It's like one of the root sports of the Olympics, and I think they're destroying part of their history by getting rid of it.
And then a quick follow-up, if I could, for Dan and Lyoto. Wanted to get your guys' thoughts on what's at stake. What's at stake here for this fight? The rankings have you guys as 1 and 2. The UFC's rankings, of course, those have been, criticized by some people. But you guys are number 1 and number 2. So I'm wondering what your understanding is of what's at stake in your fight. Maybe start with Dan.
Just like any fight nowadays, there's a lot on the line. And he's definitely going to be a huge challenge, and I'm not really even looking past this fight. I just want to make sure that my game plan is there, my mind is in this fight, and we'll see what happens after that.
And then for the other?
O que está em jogo nessa luta? Você e o Dan são número 1 e número 2 no ranking.
Eu acho que o vencedor dessa luta, com certeza, deverá ser o próximo desafiante pelo cinturão, né? Então, se o Dan Henderson é o número 1 e eu sou o número 2, então a gente está numa disputa aí para ver realmente quem pode lutar pelo cinturão.
I believe that, out of this fight, whoever wins should definitely be the contender for the title. If we're number one and number two, then the title shot's definitely on the line in this fight.
Are you still disappointed with the way things played out this past year with the title shot that was offered and you had to turn it down because you didn't have enough time to train?
E como é que você se sentiu com tudo aconteceu, que você foi oferecido o title shot e você não tinha tempo para treinar? Como é que foi esse último ano?
Foi difícil para mim, porque assim, eu, lógico, queria muita chance, né, de lutar pelo cinturão, mas não queria na situação que aconteceu. Faltando apenas 20 dias para uma luta, eu tenho que me preparar em 20 dias e o John Jones está preparado já há 2, 3 meses. Então foi difícil. Mas acho que isso faz parte, né, também.
Yeah, I obviously wanted a title shot a lot, but it wasn't the right situation. I had about 20 days to prepare for the fight, and John Jones had been training for 2 or 3 months, so it wasn't the right time to do it. I was upset, but, everything happens for a reason, and hopefully get back on top this year.
Okay, thanks, guys.
We'll go next to AJ Perez with FoxSports.com.
This is for Dan and Rhonda. Now that we see the wrestling out by 2020 at the Olympics, is this going to help possibly getting MMA in the mix there, or does this losing wrestling hurt that? Do you think?
I don't think it affects MMA at all as far as getting into the Olympics. Obviously they need to kind of limit the number of athletes at the Olympics, but I think MMA is exciting enough on its own. It definitely has its own shot at getting in there, but hopefully they can work it out to where wrestling's in there, always.
I don't know what it would really do to help MMA get into the Olympics, but I do think that having MMA around is probably what's going to help preserve wrestling. I think without wrestling in the Olympics, there would be a large drop in kids enrolling. But because it's such a good base for MMA, I think that you're still going to see a lot more kids coming in and doing it. But I don't know, man. It's just a shame. I don't know what's going to happen with wrestling, but I think that the absence of wrestling in the Olympics isn't really going to have that much of an effect on whether MMA gets inducted or not.
Cool, thank you.
We'll go next to Dave Meltzer with MMAfighting.com.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff has sort of been asked, but I did want to ask both Rhonda and Dan if there was no Olympics when you were coming up in Rhonda and judo and Dan, after college. I mean, would you have competed? Would you have continued competing in the sport? And how would you say your life may have changed if there was no Olympic goals to reach for either of you? I'll go with Rhonda first.
I think I still would have done it. My mom competed in judo. When she first started doing judo, there was no world championships for women. And then by the time she got to the point where she felt like she won everything that could be won, she pretty much started to move on to other things. But as soon as they added a world championships for women, she came back and she won that. And so I think I just would have followed the sport for as far as I could go. So she went to try and win the British Open was kind of like the Abu Dhabi of the day. It was like the replacement world championships for the women at the time. And so I would have just taken the sport as far as I could at that point. I still would have wanted to be the best at it in whatever venue was universally agreed as being the equivalent of a world championship.
Okay, and Dan?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I grew up wrestling. I don't necessarily know that I was wrestling because it was in the Olympics, especially early on. I probably wouldn't have dropped out of college to wrestle internationally and make an Olympic team, had it not been an Olympic sport. But, yeah, I probably would have got over to mixed martial arts maybe a little bit earlier, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't trade my Olympic experience for anything. So, it's just sad to see that it's on the brink of maybe not being in the Olympics again. Or after, well.
Also for Dan, can you kind of explain, like, the severity of the knee injury, how long it took to get all the way back? I mean, have you been ready, and how ready are you? As far as, I guess the injury, it seems like it took more time than maybe you first expected when you first got hurt.
Yeah, it just, was very unstable. I didn't need surgery, but, that probably prolonged it a little bit, and tried to get in and train on it and do things on it, which, may or may not have made the healing process a little slower. I don't know. But I know that it's good now, and I'm able to go 100%. So. Okay,
and for Liz and Rhonda, what kind of reaction have you gotten for that first episode of the prime time? Because I've heard more about it than maybe any episode that they've done in a long, long time. Especially, a lot of people didn't really know Liz, I think, going in, and it wasn't a lot of time, but it was enough time to where people sort of saw your lifestyle. And what kind of reaction have you gotten off of that show?
I've gotten a lot of positive feedback. Like you said, I don't think that people really had insight into my life or into Rhonda's life, so it kind of gave them a little bit more than they knew before. And it's just been a lot of people even calling into the gym as I'm working and training, asking to talk to me and just verify that I do actually work there. And a lot of people just saying, good luck to the both of us, and that they think that what we're doing is amazing.
And for Rhonda, I mean, like, that closing scene on that show, I'm pretty sure you saw it and you know what we're talking about. I mean, how hard was that? And, what did that kind of come from, I guess?
Well, people don't really see that those interviews, a lot of times they go on for hours, and it's just like an interrogation. They try to wear you down and get you emotional. They're very good at what they do. And there's just been a lot of media, and it got to the point where there were so many people asking questions like that, like, I think they do it in, like, in a very calculated way. Like, first they ask you to, like, think of, like, the good memories and stuff like that, and then it just kind of brings you back when you recount, like, the good stuff. And then they immediately jump to, the hard questions. And I guess I finally got to the point where I was just really fed up with being asked to recount that over and over. And I really feel like that's the final time that I'm ever going to talk about the way that my father died. And I felt like since it was the last time I was going to say it, then I was going to tell the story in the best way that I could.
Okay, thanks very much.
We'll go next to Mark Daniels with the Boston Herald.
Thanks. My question's for Rhonda. Rhonda, I think it was around 2003 when you were 16. You kind of moved across the country to Massachusetts to train under Jimmy Pedro Jr. I understand you lived with him and then, his father for a short time. What do you think, looking back on that experience, did it do for your career, and how did it kind of mold you into the person you are today?
I think that moving away to train at 16 years old, I never really lived at home again after that, and it just kind of forced me to grow up really quick, and I was kind of a sheltered kid before that, and it toughened me up a lot to be alone and somewhere familiar and to be completely devoted 100% to my sport. And it just really made me set my priorities for the rest of my life and decide that this is what I really am committed to. And, I'm so very grateful for that experience.
And what kind of lessons did you learn from Jimmy Pedro and his father?
A lot of it was like a lot of just discipline and persistent stuff. Like we would wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and go run in 20 degrees below weather, and it was just constant all the time, and it was a lifestyle. It wasn't a hobby. It wasn't something that I would go to school and then I would come home and then I would go to judo and then It was every single moment of my day was all about training, and though they helped me a lot with my judo game and other technical that, I think what I took the most from it was just the mental toughness that comes from being a teenage girl that has to pick up and move across the country and live with a bunch of people that she doesn't really know for, a goal that was just casually a goal of mine before that, and then it just became my whole life.
Mm-hmm. And now I know you've been asked this question a ton, but what does it just mean for you to kind of carry this torch for women's MMA?
I mean, it means a lot, but these are things that needed to be done for a very long time now, and I didn't think that waiting for somebody else to do it was the wisest thing to do. I feel like I was the most capable person, and I should just suck it up and go do whatever I can to make it happen. And, of course, there's a lot of very big obstacles in the way, Liz Carmouche being one of them, and I'm taking them all entirely seriously.
Awesome. Thanks, Rhonda.
We'll go next to Ariel Helwani of Fuel TV.
Hello. Just wanted to ask Rhonda two questions. First, Rhonda, are you disappointed? Obviously, it has been made official, but it sounds like Cyborg doesn't want to stick around in the UFC. Does that bother you?
No, not really at all. I think that she's just kind of making a lot of noise and trying to get attention because she's kind of fading into being irrelevant. She hasn't had a recorded win in around, 2 years or something like that. And so she needs to have people going on TV and making a big fuss so people would even remember her name. And to be honest, I have a lot of options ahead of me. I have a lot of girls that I could fight. And she doesn't really have any other options besides me. And so they could run around and make a bunch of noise and be a big cryborg as much as she wants. But at some point, she's going to have to come around and take the only fight that's really available for her. And in the meantime, I'm going to take the plenty of options that are available to me.
And do you know for a fact, have you asked the UFC, do you even think about this now, whether or not she will be released from her contract?
No, I really am not spending any of my time worrying about her because Liz Carmouche is 100% of my attention right now. And, thyroid's not worth my time at the moment.
And just one more question. I know Liz is 100% of your attention, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on the other women's fight that was announced yesterday, Misha versus Kat. Who do you think is going to win that fight, and do you think that the winner of that fight should be the number one contender in the division?
I think it's a very interesting matchup. I've had my eye on Kat for a while. She's one of the only other undefeated 135ers at the moment, and so I'm very interested to see how that fight goes. I would be down to fight either of them. I'm going to be there myself at the fight, and I would love to take on the winner.
Do you have a pick?
No, I really I want it to be a really good, a really exciting fight, and so much so that the fans are excited about whoever is going to come up next. So I think it would be nice to have Kat win and just to have another name that's kind of well known within the girls' ranks. But then again, if Misha wins, I wouldn't be against fighting her again at all.
Thank you. Good luck.
We'll go next to Victor Garcia with Fox News Latino.
Yes, this is a question for both ladies. So now with this new fight that Ariel just brought up, does that show to you that the UFC is really committed to women's MMA? I guess we'd start with Rhonda.
I love the fact that even before this fight is happened, that they're already scheduling more girl fights. So all the people that think, the outcome of this fight determines the future of the women's division, well, it's obviously not true. They're already investing in a longer-term vision of what they have for the girls division. Oh my God, that totally rhymed. And and it's really encouraging. I'm happy to see that it's not just about me and Liz. It's about all the girls, and I'm excited to see what's up next after this.
And Liz?
Yeah, I agree. I think that Dana White and the UFC is invested in the women's division, but it wasn't known to other people, and now this is just evidence of the work that he's putting in to build up the 135 division. I don't think that he'd make a title fight between myself and Rhonda if he didn't actually want to have a whole division that would follow after that. So it's great to see that something's lined up and that more people are starting to shrink one now.
Thanks, ladies.
We'll go next to Daniela Navarro with El Universal.
Hey, my question is for Randa. What is the most important moment in your career? When you won the medal in Beijing or your first title defense on UFC?
Well, you're going to have to ask me after I defend my title because it hasn't happened yet. So after this fight, ask me the question, and then I'll give you an accurate answer.
Okay, and you get more nervous with this fight or when you were competing in the Olympics?
Oh, definitely the Olympics. Definitely. The Olympics is something you work for your entire life. You have one chance every 4 years, if you even have more than one chance. And in judo, it's like you can slip at any moment and fall on your back, and that's it. There's much less room for error in judo than there is in MMA, and there's much fewer chances to win an Olympic gold medal than to win a title. There's always a new fight every couple of months, but there's only one Olympics every 4 years. So there's nothing that could ever compare to the pressure of an Olympic Games, and that's why I feel like I'm so well prepared for this UFC fight.
When did you decide to pass from judo to the UFC?
What, sorry?
Yeah. What defined your decision to pass from judo to the UFC?
Well, I didn't really go from judo straight into the UFC. I just knew that I didn't want to do judo anymore, and I spent pretty much a year thinking about what else I would want to do with myself, and I was entertaining the idea of either becoming a rescue swimmer for the Coast Guard or trying MMA out, and since the Coast Guard is a long-term commitment, I decided to try MMA first and to see how that would work out, and I made a deal with my mother that I would only give it 1 year, and because she was highly skeptical of that choice. And so I made my pro debut on March 23rd of 2011 and won the title on March 3rd of 2012. So I made it just 20 days early.
Okay, thank you.
And once again, if you would like to ask a question or if you have a follow-up question, please press *1 on your telephone keypad. We'll take our next question from Damon Martin with BleacherReport.com.
Yeah, my first question is for Rhonda. Rhonda, you kind of touched on it already with the primetime thing, but the primetime, you've got the Real Sports thing coming up on HBO next week. You've done a lot of media and a lot of attention for this fight. Has any of it been a distraction? You hear a lot of fighters say they don't like doing that much before a fight. Has any of it served as a distraction for you?
I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but during this conference call, I got my hands wrapped, and I'm already shadow boxing, and my sparring partner just got here. In a second I get off the phone with you guys, I'm going to go and try and knock her around. So it's really not that much of a distraction. I'm just multitasking right now.
And obviously, you know, the questions have come up about Cyborg, the questions have come up about Sarah McMahon, the questions have come up about Miesha Tate, Kat Zingano. Does it upset you at all that people are trying to almost seem like they're looking past Liz Carmouche in this fight?
No, I don't think that they're looking past Liz Carmouche. This whole conference call is about me and Liz Carmouche. I'm very encouraged that people are already talking about that stuff because they're thinking about the long-term future of the division and not like this is just some one-off novelty circus fight. So no, I'm very encouraged by all those questions, and but my focus is still entirely on Liz.
And Liz, I'll kind of turn that question around to you. I mean, do you pay attention to any of that when you see the questions coming up? I mean, do you take that as motivation at all?
Yeah, it's motivation for the success of the division. I don't think that the UFC would have been successful as they have if they just prepared for one fight at a time. They're looking down the future of the whole corporation and success. So this just shows that the women's division is going to be this long road rather than just one fight. So I see it more as a promising experience, but at the same time, I'm also just focusing on this fight, and I focus one fight at a time.
Hey, Damon, this is Dave Schaller here. Just to add to what Liz and Rhonda were saying, next week during the Fight Week activities at UFC 157, in addition to Rhonda and Liz, we are bringing in 4 of the other top women's mixed martial artists in the world, Miesha Tate, Kat Zingano, Alexis Davis, and Sarah McMahon. They will all be at UFC 157 and available for different media opportunities. So just to show you our commitment to the division, we also have 4 other top women's mixed martial artists coming to 157 to participate in media activities.
And one question, Dave. All four of those fighters, are those four officially in the well, obviously Kat and Misha are, but the other two, are they officially with the UFC now under contract as well?
Yes.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
We'll go next to Kayla Harris with Sportsnet 590 The Fan.
Kayla, are you there? All right, let's go next to Gabrielle Moreira with the Daily Sundial. Gabrielle, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes. Hi, Rhonda. This is my first question for you. How have you improved since your last fight, and how comfortable are you striking with Liz, and would you be able to go 5 rounds if that was the case?
I'm always able to go 5 rounds. That's what we prepare for. We prepare for a 5-round war. I don't walk in hoping it's going to be a first-round easy fight. That's the stupidest way I've ever heard of it preparing for a fight. Yeah, I feel like I improve with every single fight. You know, I had very limited striking experience before, and every time I come up for a new fight, I have a whole lot more time of striking under my belt, you know. So, like I told everybody before, I got my hands wrapped, and I'm shadow boxing right now. I'm getting ready to do spar right after this phone call's over, and that's because I'm taking the striking part of my game entirely seriously. And I expect it to be very much improved from the last fight, and I expect the fight after this for it to be very much improved after this fight.
Okay. And for this question is for both Liz and Rhonda. Have either of you seen a bigger push for young girls that are more interested in MMA since the sport is getting bigger as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I teach and run a children's MMA program at my gym. And I see more and more. When I started the program 2 years ago, we had one girl that was involved, and it's just because her father also participated in the gym. It wasn't really something she wanted to do. And now we have multiple girls in the program. So I see it evolving every day, and more children showing interest as well as young girls showing interest in the sport.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that there's a lot more girls around. I used to always be the only girl. Always. To the point that I never locked the bathroom. And now, because I never had to worry about anyone walking in, because it was only the girls' bathroom. And now I actually have to lock it, because people actually start coming into the gym, and it's not just me in my private little dressing room. So, what sucks is I'm no longer the little princess with her own little dressing room. Everyone else is using it too, but I'm really happy that we have a lot more other girls coming in. Hi. What's up?
Ready for your fight?
Of course, dude. Sure, I'm in the middle of a conference call right now. That's all right. That's all right. We can multitask. Come on over. Sorry, we had someone walking to the gym just now. It's not a chick, though, so it doesn't prove my point. But whatever. Come here.
And my next question is for Liz. How are you preventing all the media and all the attention on you as well from being a distraction in this fight?
I give a specific time slot where when I'm eating lunch and taking a break during training, and that's when I do media calls, and I do press and media, so it's not a distraction. And then if anything, film crews to come in, and we make them have to get in there in the cage with me, and I just throw them around a little bit.
Okay, and my last question is for Dan Henderson. You said that your knee injury hasn't been bothering you, but has that affected your training in any way? Did you have to change up some of your techniques to better adjust to the knee injury that you had and recovering from it?
Mr. Henderson has stepped away.
Okay, then that's my questions. Thank you, ladies.
We'll go next to Michael Mardonis with MiddleEasy.com.
My first question is for Liz. Liz, would you handle the Cyborg situation the same way as Rhonda, meaning, 135 or nothing, or say you're victorious come the 23rd, do you accept that fight at a catch weight?
No, I absolutely take the same approach that Rhonda has. Cyborg was the champion holder at the 145 position, but it's currently Rhonda at 135. So whoever is the champion in that weight division, that's an established weight division. To do a catch weight is giving leniency towards the other person. I think if it's a title they really want, then they have to go to that weight division and not at a catch weight.
Thank you. And Rhonda, can you explain a little bit what Big Bear was like, having all the different camera crews there every different day?
It was a little taxing, but I mean, I'm glad that we got it all over with at the very beginning of camp. So we got most of the media done in the beginning, and in the very pivotal parts of camp, we really got left alone a lot. So, and I think it's very much worth the effort. You know, what we're going to get out of whatever features that those people do is going to help the fight itself and the division itself in the long run. So, I mean, it's a lot of work to do, but I think I'm entirely capable of handling it because I think I'm entirely capable of handling almost anything. So it's a little bit more difficult, but I didn't sign up to do anything easy.
And if Misha is victorious against Kat Zingano, does maybe coaching Ultimate Fighter interest you at all?
Oh, that would be so fun. I wonder if we would coach guys or girls. And I think it'd be cool to coach guys, you know, just to see, like, for people to see the men fighters having to respect the girl fighters and training with them. But I also think it would be hilarious to have a bunch of girls on the show just to see, like, my coach getting tortured with girl problems. So, because I really don't give them that much of an issue, but the first time I hear a girl complain she doesn't want to come to practice because she has cramps is going to be the day that I die laughing.
All right, thanks, and best of luck to both of you.
That does conclude today's question and answer session. Mr. Schaller, at this time, I will turn the conference back over to you.
Thanks, Jessica, and thanks to all the media who called in today. Thanks again to Rhonda, Liz, Dan, Lyoto, and Derek, who was kind enough to translate. Before I get to the 157 media schedule for next week, I want to remind everybody that tonight, an all-new episode of The Ultimate Fighter featuring Chael